We all know that Russia has always been known for its unique sense of humor and abstract way of doing things. You can underestimate its military strength, but you cannot underestimate its ability to create surprises, even in the strict legal field. This is the case. For example, recently, a Russian court announced a high fine on Google. Generally speaking, for such high fines, several billion is usually the limit. But unexpectedly, this time the fine amount is incredibly large and is as high as to $10 billion. It has 35 digits. What is the concept of this amount of money? Let's put it this way. This is equivalent to 1.9 times 10 to the power of 15 times the current global GDP, let alone paying it. Generally, people can't even read such a number. So, why did Russia impose such a large fine on Google? The matter dates back to 2020. We all know that Russia has a famous mercenary army, Wagner, in the Russo-Ukrainian War. It first fought a bloody battle in Bakhmut and then armed a man for pay, making a big splash to promote itself. Wagner registered 2 accounts on YouTube, Zargrad TV channel and Ria Fan, mainly releasing some videos promoting Wagner and Russia. However, because Wagner was involved in the conflict in eastern Ukraine before the outbreak of the Russo-Ukrainian War, Wagner was listed as a quasi-terrorist organization by the United States, according to the instructions of the U.S. government. YouTube banned Wagner's accounts. Then what? In August 2020, Wagner's Ria Fan sued Google, the parent company of YouTube. The sued parties include Google USA, Google Ireland, and Google Russia. Of course, the lawsuit was filed in a Russian court. In 2021, the Moscow court announced that Ria Fan won the lawsuit and ordered Google to lift the ban on related accounts and imposed a fine of 100,000 rubles per day. Later, the Federal Anti-Monopoly Service of Russia FAS also imposed a fine of 2 billion rubles on Google on the grow. UNDS that Google abused its dominant position and violated the legal provisions on competition protection. But what? Before Google could lift the ban on related accounts, the Russo-Ukrainian War broke out. As more and more Western companies withdrew from Russia, Google was no exception. On June 17, 2022, Google closed its Russian branch and announced bankruptcy since the company has gone bankrupt. Naturally, it cannot pay the fine. According to the Russian legal mechanism, if the fine is not paid within 9 months, the fine amount will double every day without an upper limit. We have all heard a very famous story. Archimedes played chess with the king. The king lost. The king asked Archimedes what reward he wanted. Archimedes said to the king, "I just want to put 1 grain of rice in the first square of the chessboard, 2 grains in the second square, 4 grains in the third square, and 8 grains in the fourth square. Just fill the entire chessboard in this way." The king thought it wouldn't take much grain, so he casually agreed. In the end, the king finally found that according to this algorithm, the last 64th square of the chessboard requires 9 to 123, 370 to 036 850 for 776,000 grains of rice. So how much does this amount of rice weigh? 737.86976 to 9 for 838 to 1 billion tons. What is the concept of this number? Let's take a look. The total grain output in 2022 is 687 million tons. To fill this 64th square of the chessboard, it would take China 107 years. This is the terrifying exponential growth in mathematics. The reason for such a large fine number this time is due to exponential growth, because Google has not paid the fine all the time, and the fine doubles day by day. As a result, it has become such an astronomical number as to $10 billion. Although the Russian police promptly seized the assets of Google Russia, which are as high as $100 million, it is still a drop in the bucket compared to the fine. So, for such a large number, how should it be read? According to China's Shu Ji, there are 10 levels of numbers, which are called 100 million, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion, septillion, octillion, nonillion, decillion. There are also 3 levels of changes, called upper, middle, and lower. In the lower number change method, 10 tens are a change. 100,000 is called 100 million. 1 billion is called trillion. 10 trillion is called quadrillion. In the middle number change method, 10,000 millions are a change. 10,000 millions are called 100 million. 1 trillion trillions are called trillion. 1 trillion trillions are called quadrillion. In the upper number comparison method, when the number reaches the end, it changes. If we say 10,000 millions are called 100 million. 1 trillion trillions are called trillion. 1 trillion trillions are called quadrillion, of course. There are even larger ones. 10 jing, 100 jing, 1,000 jing, gay, 10 gay, 100 gay, 1,000 gay, z, 10 z, 100 z, 1,000 z, rang, 10 rang, 100 rang, 1,000 rang, GOU, 10 GOU, 100 GOU, 1,000 GOU, GN, 10 GN, 100 GN, 1,000 GN, Zheng, 10 Zheng, 100 Zheng, 1,000 Zheng, ZAI, 10 ZAI, 100 ZAI, 1,000 ZAI, G, 10 G, 100 G, 1,000 G. Grains of sand in the Ganges. 10 times the grains of sand in the Ganges. 100 times the grains of sand in the Ganges. 1,000 times the grains of sand in the Ganges according to the 10,000 base system. Russia has fined Google to $100 GOU. Obviously, even if Google is sold 100 times, it still cannot gather this amount of money. And even if Google had this amount of money, it would not pay. Then why does Russia still announce this figure? Obviously, this is just to create a big news. Why? Because of the current poor relationship between Google and Russia. After the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine war, YouTube began to massively ban official Russian accounts and personal accounts that are pro-Russian government. This includes television channels such as Zvezda, Channel 1, the National Sports Television Channel, technology company centers, etc., as well as individual bosses like Simony and MS, and so on. In this way, although Russians can still access YouTube, they can no longer see any accounts speaking for Russia on it. This obviously has a huge impact on Russia's internal and external propaganda. In August 2024, Google again announced the complete closure of AdSense accounts for Russian users. AdSense is an advertising service provided by Google that helps content creators earn income by displaying automatically matched ads. Creators only need to embed advertising codes. Google will automatically place relevant ads according to the interests of visitors. When users click on ads, creators can obtain corresponding earnings. However, Ukraine believes that the advertising fees Google gives to Russian app owners is aiding the enemy, so it complained to the US government about Google. Eventually, Google suspended AdSense accounts for Russian users. This means that many YouTube accounts held by Russians with an annual income of tens of millions will instantly see their income reduced to zero. This obviously makes Russia very dissatisfied, but at the same time it cannot truly punish Google. So it chose to issue a sky-high fine to express its dissatisfaction and attitude. Then how much is the fine? If only a fine of 300 million is imposed on Google, it obviously will not attract much attention. But a fine of $200 GOU will attract the attention of the whole world. Judging from now, Russia's goal has been successfully achieved. Everyone has been shocked by this sky-high fine, although this incident can be called a Soviet-Russian joke in the new era. It is obvious that the behavior of using fines or claims to make trouble is not the monopoly of Russians. For example, North Korea. On June 25th, Anti-US Struggle Day in 2024, North Korea proposed an uncompromising standard for victim compensation to the United States, with a total amount of 700 to x 10 to the 8th power North Korean won, according to the official exchange rate of $1 900. Wait for 8 North Korean won. It is about 78 trillion US dollars. How is this amount of money calculated? Basically, it can be classified into 4 aspects: personnel, war, destruction, and sanctions. First, in terms of personnel, North Korea pointed out that there are a total of more than 770 victims of the IC's killing crimes in North Korea, including 1,247,870 deaths, more than 911,790 kidnappings, and more than 391,740 disappearances. Considering the period during which the survivors can work and the additional income they can receive, as well as the interest during the period when they have not been compensated, the victim compensation amounts for the deceased, kidnapped, and missing people total more than 16,533,396,000 US dollars. The victim compensation amount for the wounded and disabled totals more than 9635 to 7,000,000 US dollars, for a total of more than 61688 to 3,000,000 US dollars. Second, in terms of war, North Korea pointed out that the property loss caused by the United States to North Korea during the Korean War amounts to more than 166616220,000 US dollars. Among them, the economic loss caused by the United States biological and germ warfare during the war amounts to more than 50,535.600 million US dollars. Third, in terms of destruction after the ceasefire in the Korean War, the United States also systematically planted terrorist saboteurs in North Korea to destroy peace facilities, causing property losses of more than 2,126,600,000 US dollars. Fourth, in terms of sanctions, the United States sanctions and blockade activities against North Korea for more than 70 years from 1945 to 2017 have caused economic losses of more than 29,350 for 0,000,000 US dollars. And the amount is continuously increasing like a snowball. In addition to these, there is also psychological harm that cannot be compensated by anything. That is, mental damage compensation and psychological harm compensation. This cannot be quantified because North Korea claims spiritual harm cannot be compensated by anything. Adding up all the other miscellaneous items, it is almost 78 trillion US dollars. What is the concept of this amount of money? Let's look at the US GDP in 2023, which is 27.36 trillion US dollars. If the United States wants to gather this amount of compensation, it needs to save 3 years of GDP. At the end of the white paper, North Korea also said, the Korean people completely calculate all the heinous anti-DPRK criminal atrocities of the United States that have continued across centuries and eras and look forward to the moment when all the crimes committed by the United States are completely liquidated. However, will the United States really pay North Korea so much money? Obviously not. The United States is not stupid. And North Korea also knows that the United States will definitely not pay this amount of money. So North Korea proposed another plan. An eye for an eye. This is an uncompromising standard for victim compensation and an absolutely unchangeable will for revenge. To put it bluntly, this is another act of verbal intimidation. On the one hand, It exerts pressure on the United States and increases its bargaining chips in negotiations with the United States. On the other hand, it is also to unite the will and use external pressure to unite the country. It has to be said that this kind of serious sense of humor is really a unique characteristic of the Juche ideology that belongs only to North Korea. Therefore, behind the outrageous claims for compensation and fines, it is not so simple. They all have political purposes.